faster you drive, the faster you get there, right? Well, let's find out. It's the most common question I see in the Honda Prologue forums. I drove this far, for this long, at this speed. Why didn't I get the efficiency that my miles in the corner told me I would? What did I do wrong? Today we'll test the efficiency of the Honda Prologue and find out how much impact high speeds actually have on efficiency and your time on the road, especially as the length of your trip increases. There are a ton of variables that will change what efficiency your vehicle gets, so today we'll try to eliminate as many as possible. But we still need it to be a real-world test. I'll be driving from Mount Morris, Pennsylvania to Fairmont, West Virginia, and back. We'll call it the Mountaineer Loop, and the speeds will be 75, 70, and 65 miles per hour. At least that's what I'll set my cruise control at. The yield today should be an efficiency rating with as few variables as possible, and then we can calculate what speed you should actually drive if you're going to take a really long road trip in the Honda Prologue. We do need to put an asterisk on this entire test and heavily emphasize the word long, because if you're on a short trip, especially less than the total miles of range you have in one charge, the faster you go, the sooner you'll get there. But I figure the maximum amount a person would want to drive during a road trip in one day is around 500 miles. So we'll crunch all the numbers at the end with 500 miles in mind. We obviously need to charge on a road trip, so during this test, I'll charge at a supercharger from somewhere around 10% to somewhere around 80%, kind of like you would if you're on a road trip yourself. And we'll use the results from that charge as the control for the entire experiment. So all the charges on our imaginary 500-mile trip will be the same length of time, number of kilowatts in speed, and number of kilowatt hours total dispensed from the cabinet. My climate control will be set at 70 the entire time. There will also be no preconditioning. Instead, we'll do our 75 mile per hour test first, in order to heat up the battery the most we can. Plus, with the temperature right now, I don't think we need preconditioning at all. We'll find out. And after today, if all goes well, we'll know what speed to drive from now on to maximize road trip efficiency. The loops of 75, 70, and 65 miles per hour will be timed, and the number of miles per kilowatt hour will be measured. Also, the loop that I've chosen represents pretty much any variable you'd come across on a regular highway trip as well, including road construction, changes in elevation, and speed-controlled zones, which we can use to simulate traffic. We're also driving at night because cloud cover won't play a role in temperature variance. And another variable, a huge one in fact, is wind. And luckily today, our wind is literally listed at 0. And there's less than 3 degrees difference in temperature during this entire test in the forecast. The tires are aired up to within 1 pound of where they should be on the door placard. They all read 41 cold pressure, and we're ready to go. And with that said, let's get into it. All right, here we are for the start of the test. We're at the supercharger in Fairmont, but I'm only going to do interstate on and off. So that way we don't factor in any of the surface roads. We're just going to try to do interstate only. Once I hit the exit ramp, I'll stop the timer. Once I get on, I'll start the timer. 75-mile-an-hour test is first. Let's get to it. So as soon as I hit the exit ramp, I'm going to start the stopwatch and reset the trip meter. We should be able to get our distance exact. So the only variables here will be miles per kilowatt hour and the amount of time it took. This is the 75 mile per hour test, but like I said, there will be some road construction. There's a lane divide on this loop. There's minimal traffic, but I will most certainly get held up a couple times. And I'm doing this for you guys. If you notice, I just missed my 6,000 mile mark. I guess 6,000.3 isn't bad to catch. But at the end of the day, we'll still be able to calculate an average speed. And it's not a closed course, but your driving won't be either. We've got steep inclines, steep declines, but remember, it is a loop and every speed will be on the same loop, at the same temperature, at the same time of day, in the same conditions. And the idea for this test came to me as I was crunching some numbers from data I had collected in other videos. At this point in the video, I'm still in the dark just like you. And since we don't have the results yet, let me know if this video is dumb down in the comments. And we're just approaching the end of the 75 mile per hour test, 42 minutes, 28 seconds, 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. And let's keep an eye on that 50.4 miles to make sure I didn't mess up the route. Next is the 70 mile per hour test, which I was much more excited to do because 75 is the fastest I've ever driven that vehicle in my entire life. And I'm so glad that's over. I was a little slow on the draw with the stopwatch, so there may be a 2 or 3 second margin of error. My apologies. And since I haven't done the maths yet, so my reactions to the results would be more genuine, 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour times an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack is 204 miles. So in this set of conditions at 75 miles an hour, 100 to 0 would have been 204 miles. We'll come back to that. This is me merging back onto the interstate halfway through our loop in Mount Morris, Pennsylvania, approaching the West Virginia line and some more road work. I didn't run the audio on the camera because, well, I was jamming out. It's the only way to enjoy this chaotic loop of poorly maintained interstate 3 times in a row. At 70 miles per hour, the Prologue's wind noise is extremely tolerable. 75, it's pretty loud. And 65, it's almost gone. Here's another 55 zone. None of these are more than 1/4 mile even each, but there are several,
which we can use to simulate traffic.
Here we are approaching the exit for our 70 miles per hour result. Looks like it is going to be a little bit longer, but it is going to be more efficient. Let's find out the exact number. Right when I cross onto the exit, we'll go ahead and hit the stop. And we're at 44 minutes, 46 seconds, just turned over 50.5 miles, 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour. And at this point, I am low on battery. Started this test right around 60% from my home, but we are definitely under 20 at this point. Time to head back to the supercharger. We came to the supercharger because we are at a low state of charge. So now it's time to charge for, let's say, 30 minutes, 80%, or whenever the taper happens. Whichever comes first. The data gathered here will be extremely important. I'm trying to get a standardized charging session to use as a repeatable result that will be the cornerstone of this efficiency research. Will it be a power taper? Will we reach 80% or will it be 30 minutes? Turns out it's the latter. We reached 30 minutes with 57 kilowatt hours dispensed. We were still ripping pretty steadily at 77 kilowatts and our charging fee was $29.08. Everything except our final speed will be very important for our data analysis. But enough math for now. There'll be plenty of that at the end of the video. It's back to the interstate for our 65 mile per hour test. Start the watch, reset the trip. Let's do 50 more miles at 65. Okay, maybe I lied about the math. 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour times 85 kilowatt hours is 229.5 miles. My 70 mile per hour test, which I have an entire video on where I did a much more in-depth 70 mile per hour examination of the Prologue, yielded me almost the exact same data, 227 miles, from that test. So that's great that we're getting some similar reliable results because we are going to expand this data a great deal at the end of the video. Here's the roadwork at the state line approaching Mount Morris, and let's swing it all the way around for one more trip back to Fairmont to get our 65 mile per hour results. And from the data, it looks like it will be more efficient than 70 miles per hour, but it won't be as much of a delta as it was between 75 and 70. And that is part of the point here. The higher your speed, the more exponentially resistive the air will be, which is why setting the cruise at 80 will absolutely destroy your range in an EV, especially an EV like this one. So what do I mean by an EV like this one? The Model Y was designed to be the most aerodynamic vehicle it possibly could be for its form factor. My previous Fisker Ocean and this Prologue were designed to look good and follow a design language and design aesthetic before aerodynamics as far as priority. The result is soul-crushing efficiency loss at higher speeds. And here we are approaching the connector exit in Fairmont. My trip meter reads 50.4. My stopwatch reads 47.55. And now that we have the data, it's time to do some complex math. You get to watch while I get to struggle. Let's get straight to it. So the first thing we need to do is just look at the basic raw data. It was 50.4 miles at all 3 speeds, so the loop worked. 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour at 75, 2.7 at 70, and 2.9 at 65. But those weren't our actual speeds. Because we have the time and the mileage, we can calculate our average speed: 71 when the cruise was set at 75, 67 when the cruise was set at 70, and 63 when the cruise was set at 65. And that's all well and good, but why did we even do this? The goal is to find out if going faster over a long period of time actually saves time for that trip. And this is kind of difficult to illustrate, but at 75 miles per hour, you start at 80% charge on your road trip. Then you drive till you get to 13%, and then we do our charge that we illustrated earlier, resulting in 136 miles over 2.41 hours after our first charge, and that total of $29.08 that we came up with from the supercharger. Next, we leave at 72%, we run until we have to go back to 13% and charge again, and what happens is 2.19 hours over 120.3 miles between charges at 30-minute intervals at 75 miles per hour, 120.3 miles. Now we start tabulating a cumulative total, just over 4.5 hours, 250 miles, $58.16. Repeat the same process again, go from 72 to 13, charge for 30 minutes, back to 72. Now we're at 6.79 hours, 376 miles, and $87.24. The final leg of the trip is the exact same thing, 72 to 13, allowing us to get our cumulative actual total. And yes, at the end of our trip, we are going to charge back to 72% again, because you'll have to do that anyway. And the time to charge when you're doing a long distance and you have to continue on the long distance the next day is the night of the drive, because in the morning your battery will be cold and it'll be longer to charge and you'll have to precondition. But when you pull into the nearest charger to your destination after you're driving, your battery is optimized and ready to charge. That's the result here. 8.98 hours, 496.9 miles, $116.32. And then we do our bullseye total, which I take these and plug them in using exactly 500 miles, which means it would take 9.03 hours and $115 to go 500 miles using my data. At 70 miles per hour, it's the same thing. You start at 80, you go down to 13, you recharge, back to 72, and you continue to hop. I won't burden you with all of the data, but we can fast forward to the 70 miles per hour cumulative total, 9 hours and 11 minutes and $103. If we go back to our 75 miles per hour, $115, 9.03 hours. And our 70 mile per hour total again, 9 hours, 11 minutes, $103. So when we arrive and we had set the cruise at 70 compared to when we arrive and we had set the cruise at 75, we're looking at less than 10 minutes and $10 cheaper for driving 70. 70 looks very promising. On to 65. Same thing. Start the trip at 80%, drive to 13, charge back up to 72, and repeat. What we get at the bottom is our 65 mile per hour cumulative total, 9 hours, 45 minutes, $95.50, or 34 minutes longer than our 70 mile per hour test. And we're only saving about $7.50. And I'm sure you wonder where the difference in cost comes from. Well, when you get to your destination, you charge from wherever your state of charge is at that point back to 72. At 65, you're only charging for 13 minutes when you get to your destination. At 70, you're charging for 18 minutes and 30 seconds. And at 75, you still have to do a full 30-minute charge because you arrive at your destination at 13%. So there's the difference in price. It's that last charge at the end of the night so you can start going again in the morning. So what's the conclusion? The best way to drive the Honda Prologue on the highway to optimize time and money is to set the cruise at 70 miles per hour and average around 67.5 miles per hour. It will get you there almost exactly as fast as if you set the cruise at a higher rate of speed. And even if you have a 250-mile journey, you'll still get the same benefit if it's a round trip. So when you look at the bottom left corner of your driver's display and it says a number of miles, understand this is not a universal truth. At 100% charge, which, by the way, I never recommend doing for any reason, a Honda Prologue will have 204 miles of range at 75 miles per hour, it'll have 228 miles of range at 70 miles per hour, and it'll have 247 miles of range at 65 miles per hour. And I put some other percentages in there in case that's what you leave with. The most important numbers for me are the 80% charge numbers. At 75 miles per hour, it's 163 miles. At 70 miles per hour, it's 182. And at 65, it's 197 miles of range. If you want more, you've got to slow way, way down, and it doesn't make any sense. But in all reality, the most important numbers are actually at the bottom of each of these mile per hour calculations. If you're going 75 at 20%, you've got 41 miles. If you're going 70 at 20%, you've got 46. But if you're going 65 at 20%, you've got 50 miles of range. So if you don't know if you're going to make it to your destination and you've got the cruise set at 75, lowering your speed by 10 miles per hour adds 10 miles of range instantly. My question to you is, how has your Prologue performed, and will you change your habits based on the results of this data? If it's your first time here, make sure you check out all the videos I've done on the Honda Prologue. The playlist is right here. Join Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access to videos. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you on the next one.
Smash the like button.
Thank you.